Simply making a good or even great movie just isn't enough these days. There are so many other factors which dictate whether a film will succeed or fail at the box office, and chief among them is marketing. Without marketing, how will moviegoers even know a film exists? But beyond that, how a film is sold to the masses can have a massive impact on how it's perceived in the lead up to its release, whether for better or for worse. And in the latter column, we have quite a few films that have released in recent years. I'm Ewan, this is What Culture, and here are 10 recent movies ruined by their marketing. Number 10. Argylle. There's been no movie marketing campaign in recent memory more obnoxious than that of Matthew Vaughn's Argylle, enough that it surely persuaded many to actually miss the film entirely. For starters, just a single main trailer was released, and Universal and Apple put it in front of everything for many months. Enough that by the time Argylle finally came out, vast swaths of potential customers were long tired of hearing anything about it. It didn't help that the trailer was way too busy hyping up how crazy and wild it was, alongside the widely memed "from the twisted mind of Matthew Vaughn" tagline. Now, I'm no Vaughn disliker or anything. That X-Men movie he did, pretty fun. But we've gotta be kidding ourselves if we think he's worthy of some agent provocateur creative title on the lines of something that would go to Tarantino or George Miller. Toss in a dodgy-looking CGI cat and the fact that the trailer made it seem like Henry Cavill would have a role as big as his hairdo when he didn't, and it's little surprise why toxic word of mouth quickly killed its box office chances once it released. Number 9. Mean Girls. If you took the trailers for the new Mean Girls at face value, you likely assumed it was simply a remake / reboot of the iconic original 2014 comedy, but that wasn't quite true. Rather, Mean Girls 2024 was an adaptation of the stage musical based on the original movie, and yet the trailers were bizarrely shy about this, tap dancing around the musical numbers and making it look like a straight-up comedy film / remake. And so, on release weekend, TikTok and social media in general was flooded with moviegoers caught off guard by the fact that the film was actually a 13-song musical. This is actually part of a recent trend in which other musicals, namely Wonka and The Color Purple, have shied away from emphasizing their musical elements in marketing, due to the perception that general audience interest in musicals is waning following numerous high-profile bombs like Dear Evan Hansen, In the Heights, and of course Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Paramount straight up confirmed as much in an interview shortly after Mean Girls' release, and while this left some audience members frustrated that they'd been sold a materially different movie, the gambit did at least pay off for the studio, as the film grossed over $100 million worldwide. All the same, ambushing audiences with a surprise musical totally out of nowhere? Not cool. Number 8. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 was another rock-solid entry into Tom Cruise's spy thriller franchise, and if I'm being honest, it's one of my faves of the series. I absolutely loved it. Though Dead Reckoning Part 1 was widely expected to be one of the highest grossing films of 2023, it ended up underperforming with a final haul of $567.5 million, far shy of the $700 to $800 million figure most analysts predicted ahead of its premiere. And this can't solely be blamed on the Barbenheimer phenomenon sucking all the air, or money, out of the room. A big part of the problem was the movie's trailers, which, beyond failing to distinguish this Mission Impossible from all the others, spent way too much time giving away the movie's best stunt for free. By the time folks actually sat down in a cinema and watched Tom Cruise drive a motorcycle off a cliff, they'd already seen it like 50 times in various trailers, and so much of the luster was lost. Couple this with the fact that the stunt simply wasn't as impressive as seeing Cruise pilot a helicopter for real in Fallout, and the trailers ultimately failed to sell the film as an immediate must-see. The Part 1 title probably didn't help things either, encouraging audiences to wait and watch it at home just before Part 2 comes out instead of actually going to the cinemas. Paramount evidently has taken notice of this though, as they're reportedly ditching the Part 2 nomenclature for the next film. Number 7. The Marvels. Though the general disinterest in the Marvels can't be entirely laid at the feet of its lackluster marketing campaign, it certainly did nothing to help the film, which cratered at the box office and grossed barely $200 million worldwide. First and foremost, the trailers made it seem like the place-swapping gimmick, in which the three Marvels swap places every time they use their powers, was going to be far more plot pivotal and important than it actually was. In the final film, it felt like an afterthought tacked onto the main story. Then there's the fact that later trailers, sensing an underperformance in the making, spent way too much time referencing Avengers Endgame, as if to try and remind fans how much fun these movies used to be. And a last-minute promise that the film would offer up a game-changing twist for the MCU ended up feeling most desperate of all, especially as it was ultimately referring to a mere mid-credit sequence. Toss in a naff-looking villain who dared to drop the laughably cliched one-liner, "You took everything from me," and the Marvel's marketing never once convinced audiences that they needed to leave the house to see it, rather than just waiting a few months for the Disney Plus drop. Number 6. The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Compared to every other film on this list, The Last Voyage of the Demeter's marketing gaffe was almost hilariously simple, and it's truly baffling that Universal didn't see it coming. The vampire film, adapted from a chapter of Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, was stuck with a clunky, unappealing title which immediately sold it to few people. What the hell is the Demeter if you're not aware of the book? And more to the point, why isn't the word Dracula in the title? In some international markets, the film was actually given the more fitting title of Dracula Voyage of the Demeter, but domestically, its mistitling ensured it mustered little interest there, grossing just $13.6 million in North America against a budget of $45 million. Yeah, granted it didn't really do any better internationally either, but this so-and-so horror flick wasn't even given a fighting chance right out of the gate with such a lousy title. Considering the movie offered up one of the all-time most terrifying screen renditions of Dracula, what a shame that so few actually bothered to see it. Not that anyone in the UK can be blamed for that though, as it didn't actually get released here due to corporate malarkey. But hey-ho, a shame all the same. Number 5. Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. It is painfully clear that Universal sent Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken out to die. Between its minimal marketing and the actual content of said marketing, it was no surprise that the animation was a big ol' flop last summer. But it wasn't even the lame title or generic trailers which totally ruined its chances to turn a profit. It was the decision to freely reveal the movie's big twist. The trailers straight up spoiled that mermaid Chelsea Van Der Zee, played by Annie Murphy, is the film's big bad, even showing off her transformation into the monstrous Queen Narissa. It was revealed so casually that many assumed Universal were going to subvert audience expectations in the final film, but no, it plays out precisely as it does in the trailer. And beyond all of that, it probably didn't help that Universal straight up insulted their own potential customer base, as they had the trailer playing in front of Disney's The Little Mermaid remake, and dared to include the one-liner of course they like mermaids, people are stupid. Yeah. Number 4, Madam Web. Now, to be completely fair, the fact that Madam Web is a terrible movie is probably what ruined it, but the marketing campaign, well, that surely didn't help things either. Even if you ignore how hilariously little effort Dakota Johnson put into pretending she was interested in promoting the film, Madam Web rendered itself a widely memed laughingstock from the moment its first trailer dropped. Many relentlessly drag the trailer for including the woefully wooden, clunky line, "He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died," which became viral enough that the filmmakers ultimately ended up cutting it from the film itself. But the damage had already been done. The line alone cemented the online perception that Madam Web was going to be pure dreck, and so likely persuaded many to swear off seeing it altogether, no matter how many weird Dakota Johnson ASMR promos that were recorded. After all, why spend money on a movie ticket when it's way more entertaining to just make fun of it online? Madam Web certainly wasn't vindicated by either its quality or its box office, but Sony only has themselves to blame when they let the marketing blatantly expose how thoroughly awful it was going to be. Number 3. Origin. Ava DuVernay's new drama Origin was certainly one hell of a movie to market, enough that distributor Neon basically decided to play coy with the film's real subject matter in its trailers. In reality, Origin is based on the life of author Isabel Wilkerson and the thesis of her 2020 novel Cast: The Origins of Our Discontents, which posits that the oppression of black people in the United States is motivated primarily by an unacknowledged system of caste. Granted, it's a tricky, heady concept to sell to general audiences, but even so, the trailers largely elided the film's intellectual thrust in favor of selling it as a grief movie in which Wilkerson suffers through the sudden death of her husband, played by John Bernthal, while invoking a ton of confusing, out-of-context imagery relating to the film's real subject matter. Given that Origin was never going to be a breakout box office hit, why even bother misleading audiences about what it really was to begin with? It would have been smarter to focus on appealing to the art house and cinephile crowd by genuinely reflecting the movie's content. It's ultimately little surprise that Origin didn't even gross $5 million worldwide against a $38 million budget, an outcome which prompted DuVernay to not so subtly criticize Neon for their bungled promotion of a film widely expected to receive Oscar nominations, which it didn't. Number 2. Abigail. Marketing a movie about a vampiric ballerina picking off a house full of her kidnappers should have been piss easy. But Abigail had one big problem. That reveal doesn't come until halfway through the movie. Now, despite this, the movie's trailers freely dispensed with this mid-film twist, that this adorable ballet dancer, played by Alicia Weir, is actually an extremely dangerous, blood-sucking beast. And so, when audiences sat down to watch Abigail for themselves, they unsurprisingly got restless waiting for the vampire shenanigans to actually kick off full and proper. It's almost a full hour before Abigail shows her fangs in the film, and had Universal marketed it a little more cleverly, it could have been a shocking surprise on par with From Dusk Till Dawn's genre-shifting twist at the midpoint. By the way, that film, I was lucky enough to go into that one completely blind, and let me tell you, it hits different. Oh, how I wish Abigail could have done the same. The trailers could have simply suggested that something was off about Abigail without straight up confirming what it was, in turn helping build buzz by focusing on the mystery of precisely what she is. Think Barbarian, a movie which I didn't really care for, but absolutely guarded its second act twist to startling effect. Instead, it was clear that the filmmakers intended for the vampire reveal to be a left field surprise, and the trailers gave it away for free, ensuring many viewers were left impatiently sitting through 50 minutes of build-up. This likely isn't the sole reason that Abigail flopped at the box office, but it certainly didn't help. And number 1, Love Lies Bleeding. Okay, so it is a huge stretch to say that marketing outright ruined Love Lies Bleeding, because it is fantastic, but it did nevertheless pointlessly spoil one of the film's funniest gags. Oh, and that gag also happens to be at the very end of the movie. So yeah, spoilers ahead for Love Lies Bleeding if you haven't seen it yet. Avert thy eyes if you plan on going into that one completely blind. The main trailer concludes by showing Kristen Stewart and Casey O'Brien's protagonist driving a truck with a dead body in the back. But here comes the twist. The corpse isn't quite dead. It's an intriguing hook for the movie itself, except as anyone who's seen it will know, this is actually the final scene in the film, and blatantly spoils that a certain character believed to have been killed earlier in the story is still very much alive. Anyone watching the film who remembers the trailer will know that this character isn't dead the moment they see them rolled up in carpet, and so you have to wonder why A24 needlessly spoiled such an amusing climactic stinger.